Hey, girl.
I wanted to bring us here to have a conversation around pumping and just how it's such an important part of the feeding journey and the many emotions that could come up from being discouraged or just anything that could come from the need to pump. Sometimes we need to pump because we're away from baby, separated from baby, and sometimes babies have oral restrictions that, prevent them from being able to latch on and transfer milk adequately. Sometimes mom's nipples can be damaged, and we really want to protect mom's nipples and protect that milk supply. Right. So as NICU moms, I know you guys can provide a lot of information to this conversation.
One can relate to that experience because I was away from my baby in the NICU. She was born prematurely and I didn't get that chance to put her to my breast. So when I found out she would be in the NICU for a long time, I went immediately to the pump. I pumped every 3 hours for 15 to 20 minutes and I was able to deliver my breast milk to the hospital. So even though I wasn't able to physically latch my baby onto my breast, I still got that connection knowing that she was getting the milk I pumped for her.
I love that you brought that up because just because we start off pumping doesn't mean that we have to pump the entire feeding relationship. Mm-hmm. A lot of times baby can come back to breast as the situation changes and shifts.
My situation was a little bit different because we found out mid-pregnancy that my baby had a congenital disorder. She had a very rare condition called campomelic dysplasia. It's a type of dwarfism, and one of the symptoms is having something called micrognathia, or a very small jaw / mandible. So I knew already, being a birth worker, I'm not gonna be able to breastfeed my baby at the breast because her jaw is gonna be set back. She's not gonna be able to latch. So I'm grateful that I knew that because I was able to be semi-realistic about what the expectation around feeding my baby would be. I already knew I still wanted to breastfeed. I knew I still wanted to only give my baby breast milk as long as I could. I had known about breastfeeding. I'd seen everybody breastfeeding, but I didn't know about actually pumping and needing to exclusively pump, and that's what I needed. I just wish I had a little bit more information about pumping before I had my baby. Absolutely. I wish that people asked me about my feeding choices ahead of time, so that way I would have known to pump as soon as I was done with surgery, before I went to sleep, because I was out for a couple hours where that first hour and a half or so after surgery, I should have just pumped and then went to sleep so I could start establishing that supply.
Yeah, absolutely. Pumping to preserve the milk and get it to baby is such a crucial and important part of the feeding journey. Other important parts of pumping are the way that the flange fits, flange sizes.
Girl. So I had a journey with flanges, honey.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so when I finally did start pumping after I had my baby, I was just given flanges from the hospital that were 24 millimeters and 28 millimeters standard size. Yeah. It was fine at first. I started getting milk, and I think maybe a week or two after pumping, I started having pain. And I saw my milk supply, which was starting to flow at night, slowly dwindle back to the point that now it's a problem because I don't have enough milk to feed my baby. And then in the NICU, when your baby's being fed through an OG tube, they have to use extra milk to prime the lines and things. So then I'm losing a lot of milk at the same time. The lactation consultant in the hospital didn't have the tools to actually measure my nipples, so I had to see an IBCLC outside of the hospital, and she measured me, and we actually got a chance to try different size flanges on to see how they felt first. That way I wouldn't have to go and spend my money trying to figure it out or play the guessing game. She also acknowledged that I had swelling, I had some redness, and also my skin on my nipples was coming off a little bit. So she acknowledged all that, and we got the best fit that we could possibly get. So I was using a size 24, and I actually measured for a size around 22, but it was still uncomfortable, and she mentioned it's probably because of the swelling. So I ended up with a size 19. Wow. So way different than a 24. And honestly, when I first started pumping, I thought I needed the bigger size because I had larger breasts.
It's really common for women to think that their breast size equates and correlates to their flange size. Sure, having larger breasts doesn't automatically mean that you're gonna need a large flange size. And flange sizes range from 13 up to size 36. And so it's really more so about the way that the nipple comes through the flange. You really wanna make sure that the nipple is centered inside of the flange. and make sure that none of the breast tissue is coming in, and really making sure you have room to move without any rubbing happening at all. That is what we determine to be a proper fitting flange. The wrong flange size really can cause so much inflammation of the breast and the tissue and lead to infection, which is mastitis, which is inflammation of the breast. And so really making sure that your flange size is not too small or not too big is so important. One of my favorite things to say is that your breasts are sisters and not twins. So I've had some clients that have needed a 15 on one side and a 17 on the other side, and that's totally okay and that's totally normal. And that fitting is really going to help that process of making sure that each sister gets what they need. With the suction, you really want to start off low and gradually increase until you get to a level of suction that feels comfortable for you. And that is the place you want to stay. You really don't have to shift it too much from there. Anything that's painful, you don't want to go into.
I was an oversupplier. That was a blessing and a curse for me. And when my milk came in, my milk really came in. And I had a hard time dealing with engorgement.
Pain is a signal that something is wrong, right? In any other instance, when we experience pain, we seek out resources and support. If we have a toothache, we're like, okay, let's see what our dentist has to say. Only in parenting and feeding are we like, oh, there's pain, we're gonna push through this for our babies, and it doesn't have to be that way. So anytime we feel pain, we need to reach out to local IBCLCs or communities to get more support to get through that process. Pain is not a normal part of pumping, and it shouldn't be there.
Speaking of support, the thing that supported me, I would say the most, other than the pump, was having my pumping bra.
Yes.
I would not have been able to pump around the clock because I exclusively pump. That's the only way that I feed my baby. I needed something that was gonna hold my pump to my breast so that I could rest, so that I could eat, so that I could just like do something else.
And I did a budget-friendly method of that. I took a regular sports bra and I cut out some holes in it, and I was like, wow, I can finally read a book with my hands and actually use my hands while pumping.
And having the right size bra is also important. It's just to make sure that we aren't cutting off any of those tissues that make milk, making sure that we don't have any clogged ducts, any anything that can back up our milk and decrease our milk supply.
My mom didn't pump, my grandma didn't pump, no one in my family pumped. I was the first person in my family. So I was able to look up resources to help me relieve some of the engorgement. I would do showers where I would let the water kind of soothe my breast, and I would do breast massages to get the engorgement out. Sometimes I would do a soak where I would have like a big bowl of water, warm water, and I was just kind of like let them sit in there, and it felt really good to help get some of that milk out. And doing that before pumping actually relieve that pressure.
Pumping and using massage is called hands-on pumping, and it is proven to increase the milk supply. Any physical touch, right, sends those happy hormones through us. And so really massaging all of the parts, up under the armpit. We really do have a milk line that runs from our armpits down. Gentle but firm circles. Do it with love, as if you want to feed your baby, versus force, as if you're squeezing orange juice out of oranges, right? Because a lot of times they're like, milk, get out of there. And it's like,
that was me. I had to keep reining myself back in and like make sure that you find ways, because this is not what I wanted to do.
Absolutely.
I wanted to feed my baby at the breast.
Right.
But like I had to find ways to fall in love with this process, even though it wasn't what I expected or what I wanted. Like, what can I do to find joy with this, so that even when I'm pumping my milk, like I'm pumping and I'm getting more because I feel good.
I felt that way too. Some of the mechanisms that I use to help me overcome that feeling of resentment, the camera at the hospital. I watched that all the time while I was pumping. I had my baby's blanket.
That's such a good way.
And it smelled like her.
Yes.
And I would hold that blanket and have that camera propped up, watching her and pumping, and just like, I'm pumping all of this for my baby. And I got that sense of, so many good hormones being released, and I was just so happy when I saw the bottle filled with milk. It's like, I get to bring this to my baby.
I think what a lot of people don't realize is that our body remembers pain. And so if we associate pumping with pain, your body's gonna be like, I don't wanna do that.
Yeah.
I don't want to put myself through pain. So really making it as a pleasurable, comfortable experience as possible is what's gonna get us the most milk, because your body's gonna be like, oh, this, I remember this, let's do it. This felt good.
I'm definitely guilty of being impatient or wanting to rush the process of getting the milk out, and like starting on the low setting, but then like going up to the max setting and regretting it later. And it's like you save yourself so much trouble by just like go to where you are comfortable and be there
and feel good about
being there and like and be patient. The milk is gonna come out.
So thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you so much for having us.